We delve into a moment from Canada's 2025 federal election campaign that has sharply defined the fault lines between governance rooted in institutional conformity and a vision of leadership that places speech, transparency, and democratic integrity above bureaucratic ritual. In a pointed exchange during a nationally televised debate, Pierre Poilievre addressed Mark Carney directly, defending his refusal to accept top-secret security clearance, a decision that has been the subject of political scrutiny for over 2 years. The heart of the matter? Whether securing such clearance would enhance leadership or, as Poilievre contends, stifle it. Carney, who acquired his clearance within 3 weeks, opened the confrontation with a rhetorical jab disguised as a question. It's been 950 days, he noted, since you had the opportunity to get your top-secret security clearance, and you've refused. Why? His framing was deliberate. Canada, he said, is living in a dangerous and divided world, facing threats from Iran, Russia, China, and a shifting U.S. geopolitical posture. Informed leadership, he argued, requires access to sensitive intelligence.
And that's time. Mr. Carney. Good news is the next question is yours.
Well, I'm going to ask myself a question. Actually, I'm going to ask a question which has been troubling me. And it's troubling me because, we are in a very dangerous and divided world.
Who is it to?
I'm going to ask a question, Mr. Poilievre. Why not? We're in a dangerous and divided world. We talked earlier about the challenges in the Middle East, the threats from Iran, threats from Russia, Russia's aggression in Ukraine. We have the threats from China, which I raised. We have the United States, which is fundamentally changing its security relationships, its commercial relationships. We have all this. And in the context of that, everyone on this stage, Mr. Blanchet, Mr. Singh, myself, we have our top secret security clearance. We have our top secret security clearance. I got mine within 3 weeks. It wasn't hard, but I felt it was important that I had it so I could be in a position to be informed about that dangerous world and take decisions that. And Mr. Poilievre, it is now 950 days, if my numbers are right, since you've had the opportunity to get your top secret security clearance, and you've refused. Why?
Well, first of all, I have got my security clearance when I was a minister. I got top secret clearance at the time, so there's no problem getting that. But when the government made this recent offer, they said that if I got the secret security clearance briefings, that I would be gagged under the security law, and I could be prosecuted if I spoke freely about matters of foreign interference. Now, given that Canada has experienced Chinese interference by Beijing, the government of China, in 2 consecutive elections, I needed to do my job to speak freely without fear of prosecution. And that was not something I would be allowed to do. Even Thomas Mulcair, the former leader of the NDP, said that when he was the leader of the opposition, he never would have accepted the kind of gag order that your government and Mr. Trudeau's government was attempting to impose on me. And it's good that I made that decision, because it has allowed me to speak freely about things like the case where one of your candidates, sir, actually said that he wanted to send a political opponent to China under a bounty threatening his life or imprisonment, and you refused to get rid of him. Now, it might have something to do with the fact that you went to China not long ago to get a $250 million loan for your company. But the reality is, you refused to stand up for a Canadian who was being threatened by a foreign government, and I was able to speak freely on that matter because I refused the gag order that the Liberal government attempted
Let's let
to
him
impose
respond.
on me.
Well, there's a couple of interesting things. I think people at home have seen a robust debate here, and it's been a robust campaign, and it has not stopped Mr. Blanchet or Mr. Singh at times during his campaign by making challenges with respect to these issues. So one can address it. I will observe, as someone with the top secret security clearance, that China is not the only country that is accused of foreign interference. And
gentlemen, that is where we leave it at segment. That's our time. Now,
the suggestion was unmistakable. Poilievre's refusal, to Carney, indicated a lack of readiness for the global challenges facing Canada. But what followed was not a defensive retreat. It was an unflinching challenge to the very structures Carney sought to uphold. Poilievre's reply centered on a principle: liberty. When the government made this recent offer, he began, they said that if I got the secret security clearance briefings, I would be gagged under the security law. I needed to do my job to speak freely without fear of prosecution. That legal restriction, he argued, would have rendered him incapable of addressing foreign interference, a threat he claims has tainted 2 consecutive federal elections. He invoked a deeper concern, one not of partisan contest, but of institutional integrity. Even Thomas Mulcair, Poilievre added, referencing the former leader of the opposition, said he never would have accepted the kind of gag order the government attempted to impose. From this, the debate spiraled into broader accusations. Poilievre referenced a Liberal candidate who allegedly suggested sending a political opponent to China, a comment he framed as evidence of foreign threats reaching into domestic politics. You refuse to stand up for a Canadian who was being threatened by a foreign government, he told Carney. He then raised Carney's past business dealings in China, hinting at a $250 million loan and suggesting a conflict of interest. Carney countered, calmly but pointedly. It hasn't stopped other leaders, he said, referencing Jagmeet Singh and Yves-François Blanchet, both of whom accepted clearance and still speak on foreign interference. He added, China is not the only country accused, subtly shifting the lens from one country to a broader global risk landscape. Yet the exchange was not just about foreign policy. It was about who leads, how they lead, and what philosophical ground they choose to stand on. Poilievre positioned himself as a tribune of the people, unbound by institutional muzzles, unafraid to speak uncomfortable truths. It has allowed me to speak freely, he reiterated, pointing to the gag order as the very mechanism by which governments evade criticism and manipulate opposition speech through legal constraint. Carney, by contrast, leaned into the doctrine of informed governance. He presented clearance not as a muzzle but as a necessity, an obligation of responsible leadership in a time when geopolitical chaos demands knowledge, coordination, and discretion. This clash is more than procedural. It is psychological, philosophical, and deeply human. It reveals contrasting assumptions about the complexity of human nature and the mechanisms required to govern free societies. One side emphasizes clarity of communication, the right to question, and the necessity of being able to critique without fear. The other underscores access to technical information, systemic integration, and the careful, filtered handling of public trust. The conditions that informed this exchange, rooted in fears of Chinese interference, global instability, and Canadian democratic fragility, evoke serious ethical and emotional considerations. Poilievre's case appeals to those who see politics as a vehicle for truth-seeking through intense dialogue, confrontation where necessary, and a refusal to be silenced. Carney's stance, conversely, suggests that leadership must come with operational discipline, where discretion is not censorship, but caution. Underneath this was a test of intellectual humility. Who among them was willing to examine whether their views were too rigid, too passive, or too dictated by momentary pressure? In this respect, both men appeared steadfast, but in very different ways. Poilievre's position allowed him to highlight not just policy but character, his own and Carney's. His repeated framing of the gag order as a direct attack on his ability to serve and speak freely transforms a procedural decision into a moral battleground. The hidden logic behind his argument draws from a belief that systemic structures, while often designed to protect, can also obscure, blinding both the public and its representatives from vital truths. Carney's composure under fire demonstrated an understanding of leadership through restraint. But his failure to address Poilievre's specific accusations regarding the candidate's controversial remarks or to firmly reject any appearance of conflict regarding his dealings in China left an impression of evasion. In an environment where authenticity is valued as much as policy, this may prove costly. The narrative that emerged from this exchange is one of philosophical divergence. Should political leaders willingly accept institutional blindfolds in exchange for partial truths, or resist them to preserve unfiltered access to public discourse? This conflict taps directly into deeper democratic tensions. It explores the boundary between liberty and order, the necessity of secrets and the virtue of transparency. It questions whether one can serve the public fully while constrained by legal obligations that limit what can be said. It asks whether the need to know more is ever more important than the need to say more. Media coverage has reflected this polarity. Some outlets amplified Poilievre's stance, portraying him as a voice for the voiceless, one who chose risk over silence, truth over bureaucratic compliance. Others questioned whether he could lead a country without full access to critical intelligence. In practical terms, this debate may shape electoral perceptions on trust, readiness, and authenticity. Poilievre's base may view his actions as a necessary disruption of political theater, an act of rebellion rooted in democratic defense. Meanwhile, Carney supporters may see his composure and institutional alignment as evidence of reliability in chaotic times. Ultimately, this moment isn't just about who wins a political point. It's about whether Canadians believe that their leaders should speak first, and be briefed later, or be briefed first and speak only when permitted. It's a conversation about freedom. And in any democratic society, that conversation deserves to be had out loud, without a gag.